There's a theater in LA that me and my friends go to on the Thursday night, really late before, like, basically the Thursday before the movies open wide on like a Friday, and it's like a big ass IMAX screen and like in 3D, and like even if the movie sucks, it's like it's so much better. Even if it sucks, sucking so giant and in 3D. We are not.
Might as well be.
We might as well be, but we're not by blood, not blood brothers, I suppose. Do we look like brothers? I don't think we look really all that similar.
We met online when we were very young. We were like 14 years old, and we met on the internet on a filmmaking forum when we were both just nerding out in high school making short films, and brotherhood formed from there, slowly but surely.
Honestly, just because when we finished Grave Encounters, our first movie, we were making the credits, and our names just kind of looked shitty. Basically, they looked boring and not very memorable.
We thought the film was pretty vicious that we just made, too.
Yeah,
so
we thought
it was a good word that summarized kind of the work that we were aiming to create in the future.
I know that this is gonna sound crazy, okay? We saw something crash in the woods.
I literally picked up a camera when I was like 4 years old, and like my parents' old VHS camera, and just started filming puppet shows and stuff like that. I don't know where the interest came from, to be honest.
Do your parents know what did you like? Did they buy you puppets or something? And you were like,
I don't know.
I think I want to film these.
I don't know. I just always was fascinated with storytelling that way, I guess.
And then horror immediately after. Like, when did you get into horror movies?
And
start like making horror shorts and stuff.
I don't know.
Your
I always
stuff was pretty dark too.
Yeah, I was always had a slant towards. I was always one of those kids that loved Halloween and all the dark stuff. So it just kind of went hand in hand with doing like horror movies. Honestly, I don't know. That's a good question. I've never been asked that before, and I really don't know the answer. It seems like
you've just done it your whole life.
Well, both of us really have. I mean, you were making shorts really early on
not
too,
that
right?
early. Like, I picked up a video camera when I was like 8 or 9, and I only used it very sparingly at first until I was probably about 13, and I had a friend come over, and he had made short films in the summer, and he wanted to recreate some scene from some movie that we just watched just earlier in the day, and that was kind of the first time that I'd actually like directed a proper scene.
Right.
Other than that, it was just like goofing around with a camera when I was much younger. I think the interest just blossomed out of actually seeing a tangible result. When you photograph something, you set it up, you're in control of that world that lives in that frame, and I think that that's a very like it's a very empowering thing for a young boy. So I can see why a lot of filmmakers start at such young ages, because it's a way for them to find a voice.
No way. We thought it was a plane. It was like this disc-shaped craft.
We're both kind of film school rejects and dropouts. We both went to like a year of film school and didn't like it. We always say that there's nothing wrong with film school. We're not against film school. I think it's really good for some people, but we were so...
You had made hundreds of shorts all the time.
By the time we both got into film school, like, you know, they literally on day one, they're like, here is a thing called a camera. Here is how you turn it on. And it was just like, we're like, geez, we could be like teaching this class practically.
Right.
So it wasn't useful for us, but it can be for other people, I guess.
I guess the history film side of it, the more like...
Academic?
The more academic side, I think is more interesting from a film school perspective. Otherwise, I don't know. It's you know, you can't teach how to make cinema on a chalkboard, and that's what a lot of film schools try to do.
There's hundreds of people still alive out there. You've got to do something.
That's the only way to really learn how to make film is just do it and make a lot of mistakes and make a lot of bad shit and then just keep making stuff.
See it come together as you're editing it. You're like, wow, I really missed this. I screwed the eyeline up here and there, and you really learn the language of storytelling, you know, by having your arm in every aspect of production.
Yeah, it's the only way to learn, I think.
each film, I think, finds different influences naturally. When we're writing a scene, we'll be like, oh, this is kind of like that, and then whatever that scene is being referenced from indirectly becomes the influence, essentially. So it's not like you set out to make a movie that's super inspired by one or two films. Various inspirations just kind of creep their way into your movie as you're figuring it out, almost, you know? I think with our new film, I can say for a fact that, you know, it became pretty obvious when we were writing it that we were trying to capture some of the fear that we felt as kids when we first watched the movie Fire in the Sky. And we felt that there hadn't been an alien abduction movie that got under our skin since that, basically. And that was kind of the genesis of us really wanting to tackle Extraterrestrial.
We work on everything together, including writing the script, and I think if we have any arguments or anything like that, or the most tense it ever gets is probably when we're writing the script, and that's just sitting across from each other on a computer and firing back ideas. And
we used to fight more when we were younger too.
Yeah.
Like, we would fight over the stupidest idea, like minutia in the details of the script. We'd be like, fuck you, it should be like this.
I will kill you.
It's like 4 a.m. and we're just screaming at each other like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
To collaborate is about removing your ego, so that once an idea is put out on the table, it's no longer like the idea came from me, you know? It's just our idea, and we're always trying to figure out what's the best idea. It's not like whose idea is better, it's
Right.
what's the best
What's the
idea.
best idea.
So I think if there's ego, that's when there can be problems. But if you remove the ego, there's no problems.
Mark.
Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Grave Encounters.
On Grave Encounters, I mean, it was such a loose film that's very improvised in a lot of ways. I mean, we planned it a lot, but there was still a lot that we just improv'd and figured out as we went. But with our new film, Extraterrestrial, definitely we worked with storyboard artists for some of the bigger sequences. In the movie.
They weren't like pre-visualized on a computer or anything. And
we didn't have that. We weren't that high.
no, we weren't luxurious enough. But just it's helpful with effects-driven scenes to know you need to be able to identify how many visual effects shots are in any given scene, because that's how effects companies budget the work that they're doing. You know, it's based on per shot kind of thing. So knowing that is obviously pretty fucking important.
Psychiatric hospitals like this were seen as sort of a dumping ground for embarrassing family members rather than a place that they could go to actually get help.
Many of them were severely disturbed. It's truly frightening.
Nobody wants to make $20 million horror movies anymore. Like, I think it's becoming pretty clear that the days of that are gone, or at least they're gone for now, you know? I feel like as a result of, you know, Paranormal Activity's insane success, and then the rest of the films that Blumhouse has, you know, made billions of dollars off of that only cost a couple $1 million, it's definitely changed the model as far as how much money investors are willing to put into a genre film. And that was actually a real problem with us being able to try to get Extraterrestrial made, because investors were unable to see the difference from Extraterrestrial to a small Blumhouse film that takes place in one location, because they would see it as a cabin in the woods horror film, when in fact our movie is so much more than that. And although it may start like that, it ultimately escalates into a much larger science fiction film. And science fiction costs money because you're looking at large set designs, huge effects, visual effects, prosthetics, and so on and so forth. And it was tooth and nail to get the money just enough to be able to pull this off. And, you know, it made every scene in the film a struggle, because it was a struggle against money consistently.
Who took them?
Who do you think?
Red light honestly was a big concept for the movie.
Totally stolen from Fire in the Sky.
Totally stolen from Fire in the Sky. I mean, Probably, I mean, like, red light was a big thing. I mean, but as far as like the look of like the aliens and the spaceships and stuff, we really were just trying to. Our whole approach to everything was to take what people. If you ask anybody on the street what they think an alien looks like or what like a flying saucer looks like, they're pretty much going to describe the same thing. An alien is a gray, skinny thing with big black eyes, and we didn't want to stray too far from any of that with any of the alien mythology in the movie, just because I think it makes it inherently more real and more sort of believable, if that makes sense, when people watch it.
You know, I honestly, like, I just thought of something. I used to always say with Grave Encounters that, like, we made a ghost movie that the audience would feel satisfied shelling their money out because they actually get to see the ghosts in Grave Encounters. And I always feel like ever since, you know, Fire in the Sky, going back to that film, every kind of alien abduction movie that I've gone and sought out has always shied away from showing what I want to see. And what was it, Fourth Kind, although is a really cool movie, I fucking wanted to see the damn alien. Like, show me the alien. And even if it you know, a gray alien, like, that's, I wouldn't want to, we didn't want to make like squid aliens or anything crazy like that. We wanted to stay very in line to kind of just the mythos of, and, you know, what pop culture has taught us aliens look like.
Ever since Roswell, the U.S. government has had a treaty with the extraterrestrials.
They do tests, experiments.
Hugely, monumentally important. It's a big thing for us, and I think, unfortunately, it's something that's kind of overlooked a lot of the time. And sound design in horror films is just, it's kind of left in the back burner. But, you know, we have been extremely influenced by sound design and music, and in this film, we actually worked with these guys that are in a band from Toronto called Blitz Berlin, and it was the first score they'd ever done. But Colin knew the singer, and they had a relationship, and they just talked about it before, and it just they really wanted to do it. And, you know,
he literally got the job because I've watched the Alien trilogy with him like 3 times.
Right.
And then he was like, I could score a science fiction film. I was like, prove it.
Yeah.
Here's the scene. Show me what you got. And then it was awesome.
And then he scored like as a test one of the scenes, and we were like, sounds good. And then it was great. We were able to go down Toronto and just work with those guys for a couple days.
They should
end
score other movies. They're so good.
Yeah.
Like, they have an inherent talent for it. I think our score sounds like we spent $1 million on it, and it was made for fucking nothing.
And the sound design equally is super important. Like, we spend so much time in the mix just like obsessively trying to get every little sound, every scare sound that happens. There's like a serious art to trying to get just like a rah sound to work. There's a million ways you can just have a rah happen, and so, you know, we play around with that stuff endlessly. I think we went twice as long as we were supposed to go in the mix, just because we're so anal retentive about everything sounding cool.
The attention to detail, it is necessary with a genre film that has...
It's everything.
I mean, it's like on across the board, because it's such a colorful film. We're working twice as long in the color grade, making sure that the ships look the way that we want them to look, the way we want them to sound, and balancing all of that out is a time-consuming process. It's not something that, you know, that's why I don't like to call our film a horror film, because I think it's so much more than that. In a horror film, you can get by with strings and a few pianos, but this is a movie with a full orchestra.
You tell them the truth.
They want to know everything about us.
We are gonna die in here.
What kind of treaty?
It's a basic, simple agreement with one cardinal rule.
I think filmmaking is nothing but compromises, unfortunately, and anyone that says that it's not is lying. I think that it's just, how do you compromise without sacrificing the integrity of any given scene? And that's the struggle, and that's where I think real talent shines through, is being able to pull a rabbit out of your ass in the last minute, you know? But when you can't afford to keep shooting, you somehow manage to photograph what needs to be photographed to tell the story. And a lot of times on this film, I think in particular, like we would simplify scenes that we'd pre-visualized them and shot listed them very elaborately together, and had a very concise vision as to how we were going to execute some of the more complex sequences in the film. But then when it came time to shoot them, we realized that, you know, our day was getting away from us, and when we thought we'd have 5 hours to do it, we now only had 1 hour. So you have to be able to adapt very quickly as a director and as a filmmaker, and turn 10 shots that you storyboarded into one shot that tells the story.
Do not engage.
Casting any film is super tricky because, you know, one of the great things that bigger budget films get to do is they get to do chemistry tests with talent. So if you're casting a guy from London or whatever and someone from Canada, you can fly them, you know, once you narrow it down and you want to see what they're like together on screen, have them meet somewhere and set up a casting session and actually do a chemistry test with them. And we didn't have that luxury on this film, so a lot of the cast is, you know, out of LA. There's Freddie Stroma, who's British, and then there's actors from Toronto, actors from Vancouver. So it was really kind of challenging to see what they were all going to look like together, you know, what the cast would feel like together, because we were unable to see them all together beforehand almost, you know, or at least the two leads, Brittany Allen and Freddie Stroma. But we got super lucky with being able to get Michael Ironside on board. Obviously, Ironside to us is like a legend. Yeah. Do you want to keep talking about it? Gil Bellows was like, we were super thankful to get him. He's more of a dramatic actor. He doesn't even really particularly, I remember he said that he didn't really like the genre that much,
Right.
but he was like, I like this character though. So we were lucky to get him. I think a lot of actors have kind of like a, you know, they put their nose up to horror movies too. So you definitely see a little bit of that when you're trying to approach certain talent.
We just try to cast the best people for the job, you know. We try to not be too influenced by, I think, fame and politics and what people, because, you know, everyone's always telling you, oh, this person's really hot, this person is really great, they're up and coming, whatever.
They're in a CW show.
We tried to kind of just be like, who is actually, you know, the best for the role, and fucking not worry about the other, you know, shit.
Brittany Allen was like a huge discovery. Our casting director had seen her on a soap opera that she was pretty famous for like years ago, and her tape was just way better than everyone else's.
Yeah.
And she got the role because she was the best actor that we saw.
Yeah.
And you engaged.
We have proof that life on another planet exists. I don't want to go in there. Please, you can't take me.
Well, Tiberius, our German distributor, actually, I feel great that we're just getting a release in Germany, period. I think there's so many genre films that don't get sold or get sold for next to nothing over in Europe. And Tiberius, our German distributor, were, I think, one of the very first distributors that came on board and supported the film, and they're one of the reasons the film got made.
Actually, yeah.
Because some of the financing is based on your pre-sales, it's called, and they were one of the companies that pre-bought the movie. So whether it's a video release or not, I'm happy to be here, and we're doing our theatrical release right now at the Fantasy Filmfest.
You ain't got to go into outer space to get probed.
Both of our films are not rated in America.
So no.
No.
Not at all. It was great. Yeah, I don't know.
It's one of these, like, the ratings board is just, like, I didn't even know this until recently, but usually, like, on a movie's budget, the producers are supposed to budget, like, I don't know what the ratings board charges to rate your movie, which is fucking stupid to begin with,
Yeah.
but it's like $5,000, and I was like, we don't need that. We'll just put that $5,000 put it on the screen. I don't care what the rating is, you know?
Yeah, I've got a couple things going on, one of which is possibly a Grave Encounters 3. which we actually have a good idea for it. Really, we actually really do. So we're just waiting to see. I mean, it's kind of a thing with the money, but it seems like the demand is there. So that might be shooting as early as the end of this year, beginning of next. And another super top secret project that we're still writing right now. But yeah, a lot of stuff coming up for sure.